There has never been a time when thinking clearly and thinking for yourself have been more important than they are right now. But some people shout and punish you for even thinking something that they don't agree with. And I call these people opinion bullies. And if you've experienced abuse and neglect in childhood, you may be especially vulnerable to being controlled by them emotionally and psychologically, and sometimes even physically and financially. With childhood PTSD, it's all too common that we end up losing ourselves around other people, especially people with strong personalities and strong opinions. It's okay that people have strong opinions, but with us, we get around that and we often feel we have to go along with those opinions, or we go silent even when we disagree, or we lose track of what we believe just by being around someone else's beliefs. So some areas where this comes up, as you know, are in families, in dating relationships and marriages, with coworkers, with classmates, your neighbors, even strangers on social media, well, especially strangers on social media. Everywhere you go, people are going to have different points of view, but what we're seeing in the place of friendship and curiosity is a steep rise in the prevalence of opinion bullies. And let's define that as people with an extreme belief that their opinion is the only right one, and frankly, it's a narcissistic sense of entitlement to not just tell you about their opinion, but to demand that you agree. It's a nightmare, right? It's especially a nightmare for people who had childhood trauma. It feels very threatening. A lot of people are confused and hiding out of fear where all this bullying is leading, even people who never had trauma. So for traumatized people, this can be paralyzing. It can totally shut you down, and that's not good. What happens is, with that fuzzy zone around holding your own opinions or your own agenda around people who are being intense and authoritative, you can go deep into a CPTSD survival reaction. You know, just get through this, don't say a word, smile, agree, go along with their bullying behavior. But in that intensified pressure, you may be tempted to go along with their hurtful actions, like slandering other people behind their back and online without the least idea whether this trash talk is even true. And you end up hurting other people and hurting yourself. And it feels horrible, or it ought to. And yet this fear of expressing your own opinion is not some phobia. You're not imagining that there could be real consequences to sticking your neck out and thinking for yourself in this particular moment. So let's acknowledge there is risk and that it takes courage to be yourself and not fall into helplessness around other people's opinion bullying, and what is in effect narcissistic attempts to control you and take your power to increase their own power. So I'm going to tell you 5 things you can do to strengthen yourself so that you don't lose yourself when you're under pressure to fit in with opinion bullies. You don't necessarily have to argue with them. You can still keep quiet, but if you're going to do that, it's really important that you're making that choice that's true to yourself and not just erasing yourself like so many of us have done in the past. So this strength to keep being yourself in situations where you don't feel accepted or safe will serve you in 1,000 ways as a person who is healing from past trauma. You're learning not to disappear, not to abandon yourself around people who are louder or angrier or more pushy than you. In fact, it can be dangerous to check out when you're around this kind of person. This is one of the big ways abuse can happen. You surrender, you give up, you attach yourself to people and replace your own perception with whatever they're telling you. Not all bullying is at that level of abuse, but all bullies are a drag. And the skills I'm about to teach you will help you to get through your contact with them without getting enraged or forcing yourself to be silent or changing into some version of yourself that's not really you. Now it took me years of healing to even see how fragile I was around opinion bullies. What made me susceptible to them was, for one, needing them, or thinking I did, and sometimes I needed them for a paycheck, or, have you ever had a boss or coworker like this? I'd get around people like this, and it was like taking a terrible drug that anesthetizes you into paralysis, where I couldn't speak or move. And I just feel terrible inside and terrified to say anything. People have to really matter to you to get you to conform to something that repulses you. Either it's your livelihood, or it's your only social support, or you're under threat of some kind. And there are plenty of times and places where people had to go along or be killed, right? But there's a subtler form where it's implied that you're going to lose your job or you'll get socially destroyed in some way if you speak up. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking right now about all the political drama of recent years, and I'm going to ask you right now, if you comment, please don't name any particular person or idea in particular. We can talk about this issue without taking sides or even showing what side we're on these issues. It's really about, it's about the phenomenon of holding our own in the presence of opinion bullies, and everyone has to learn how to do that. I happen to know the people who come to this channel for support have the full spectrum of beliefs and opinions, which is beautiful and right. And we can get some healing around the social trauma of all this division and find peace with people having differences of opinion. Peace. In fact, this is good practice, and I wish all the opinion bullies out there would hear this. Always assume that people with different beliefs are in the room and conduct yourself accordingly. People who have a different point of view than you might not feel that they're safe to speak up in your presence. So you might think everybody thinks the same thing, but that's almost never true. And how I learned this was by struggling away in life with this very problem. I didn't like it. I don't like it. I used to get sick with fear and stress around it. But I'll tell you, when it comes to bullies who try to take my power away, I've been hurt before, but just as much I've hurt myself because I got scared and surrendered my power preemptively all by myself. And there was part of me that was too fragile and scared to stand on my own or to face how they might act if I expressed myself. I didn't have confidence in what I thought either. I feared that I'd be abandoned if I were honest, or if I didn't tightly control everything I said. And I hate that feeling. The more I heal from trauma, the less I can tolerate shutting myself down like a self-hating little chameleon. When you let opinion bullies cause you to shut down inside, notice the morally uncomfortable feeling that's there. It feels gross. It requires that you dumb down. It feels like poison. And I remember doing this all the time. And I've been asking myself, how much have I changed? And how did I do that? And it was kind of a process. It's still a process going on, but progress in not losing myself, not transforming into a fake self around opinion bullies began when my CPTSD healing began. It's not really a coincidence, I know. Healing makes faking stop working. Does that make sense? Healing makes faking stop working. So what can you do? You can strengthen yourself. You can strengthen the boundaries around who you are while still being curious and flexible about what you believe. You can get stronger in this area just like you get stronger physically. You do it by exercising, by practicing. Childhood trauma stopped us from doing that, but now it's time to start again. So here are the 5 things that you can do to build that strength that allows you to keep being yourself and knowing what's true, even in the presence of people who are bullying you with their opinions. All right, 1, you start by telling the truth. Maybe not directly to the people around you. It's not always the time and place. But you do it to a trusted friend who accepts you, and say it to yourself. Say it. Write it down. Start practicing articulating what you know to be true, what you believe to be true. You can sit in the car or in the bathroom, if you have to, and whisper what you know and believe. Make a habit of declaring and recording your true thoughts and feelings. This is part of your healing, to develop your individuality and to know yourself. The second way to resist opinion bullies, and let me explain why it's relevant, is to strengthen your capacity to pay attention. Now, when your childhood trauma is up and your triggers are activated, it's totally normal to be in a brain fog. But people in this state very easily just kind of walk into trouble. We can't see the red flags. We can't feel the vibe that something's not right. And so even if no one is trying to control you, you can get easily entangled with someone whose agenda is stronger than yours. Now, learning to stay present like that is a lifelong process, but it's one you can start this minute. For one thing, you can learn my daily practice. Those are techniques. You can learn them free. It's a free course, and I always put the link down in the description section. It's there, daily practice. It's also on the free tools page of my website, which is also linked. I make it just like I sort of like flood you, like check out this daily practice. And you can learn how to calm your mind and get clearer about who you are, what's real, what is your purpose. The third thing you'll need is to strengthen your ability to connect with other people. When you're disconnected and isolated is when you are most vulnerable and least perceptive about the nature of other people's intentions. So with CPTSD, there's almost always an injury to our ability to connect, to form an authentic, two-way connection with other people. And it leaves us lonely, and it leaves us too open to coercion from controlling people. Connected people, on the other hand, can see red flags, and connected people are not afraid to get away from controlling or abusive people. Okay? The fourth thing you'll need is to recover your sense of autonomy and self-determination. Traumatized people don't usually have that at first. When we're in the trauma, it feels like everything just happens to us. And sometimes that's true. We're genuinely helpless. But most of the time, we actually do have agency. We have choices. What's holding us back is usually fear. Fear that we're going to end up alone and that we have to do whatever anyone asks of us so that they'll stay with us. And this fear is paralyzing and is exactly where we can be preyed upon by abusers. So finally, the fifth thing is to practice leading each day with your own agenda. And this means basically having a life and setting your intentions for yourself about the ways you're trying to heal and expand your life. And when you're doing these 5 things, the power of bullies gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's how I realized how much I was controlled, not really by bullies so much as my own idea of what other people wanted. And in effect, I was controlled by me. So it's a big deal as a person with CPTSD to heal and grow to the point that you don't seek out people who can define who you are, which is what control is. You can deprogram yourself from the reality you knew as a kid when other people really were causing your problems and other people really were the only people who could solve them. But now it's you. You're free and you have agency, and developing this doesn't always happen overnight. But you can make progress a little bit each day. It feels great to get some healing. And if you need to be reminded what that's like, click on this video right here. It's all about what it's like when you make progress healing your childhood PTSD. I will see you very soon.